Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and I have been fighting with myself forever. As long as I can remember, I would fight with myself. Because I have ADHD, but I grew up in India, and I didn't learn that I had ADHD till I was 33 years old. I was 4 years into teaching at UNC Asheville. I'd already developed a course in neuropharmacology, which is how drugs interact with the brain. I had a PhD in neuroscience. And this woman sitting across from me is like, have you ever considered you have ADHD? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? But she was completely right. And how many other people have ADHD? I assume there's a decent number in this room. And when you don't know that you have ADHD, everybody around you tells you you're fucking up constantly. It can be simple things, it can be big things. It's my mother locking away the keys to the room where the TV was because I'm going to get distracted and watch TV instead of study. It's my ex telling me that I'm a terrible human, not saying it, but in her eyes. Because I forgot to do X, Y, or Z, but my brain just couldn't hold on to the information. It's me judging myself for not being able to sit down and study for things that I actually cared about, or all those other ways that I felt like I was letting myself down. So I was at war with myself, trying to get myself to do things the way that people wanted me to do them, even though I couldn't figure out why I couldn't do it. I've also had chronic pain for most of my life, definitely more than 2/3 of my life at this point. I think I calculated about 3/4 of my life, which I'm not that old. I'm 38. My first pain memory is from when I was 11. And it's hard. Chronic pain is hard when it's invisible. Any disability is difficult when it's invisible. And so again, you've got messages from the rest of the world telling me what I should or should not be able to do. Just right now when the comic came up and asked us to all stand up and do things, and the folks around me were like, why won't you stand up? And I didn't have the energy to explain it's because I have to stand up for a while and it's gonna be painful to do that, and so I'd rather sit for a little while. And so you're constantly trying to fit into these molds that people have set out for you. And when I tried to do that, and I did that for a very long time, it nearly broke me. It nearly broke me. My spirit, my body, my creativity, everything. I remember when I was 9th or 10th grade, and I don't know how much you know about Indian school systems, but we're very hierarchical in disciplines and we own it in this way that's really terrible. Like if you're really clever and you can handle blood, you're going to be a doctor. You know this when you're in 11th grade. If you're very clever but you can't handle blood, okay, maybe you can do engineering. And only the dumbest of the dumb are gonna go and do humanities. And I loved art as a child. I would constantly be tinkering with things and drawing stuff, and was I very good at it? Probably not, who cares? I had fun. And my mom thought, oh, you know what, we'll make her an interior designer. She seems to like that. I have really well-developed visual sense. It helps me with a lot of the design work that I do now. And I've been doing this on bookshelves forever, like making bookshelves look beautiful. And somewhere along the way, I don't even know what triggered this, but she was like, oh wait, you're smart? We're gonna make you a doctor. And this was like 9th or 10th grade. And I don't remember doing art during those years because by the time I was 13, I was experiencing pain from having gallstones. Yeah, 13-year-old with gallstones, delightful. And my knees had started giving out and I was getting trouble with my head and so on and so forth. And so a lot of things that would have brought me a lot of joy kind of went to the side because I was supposed to be this doctor. Guess what, Mom? I am a doctor. Not the type you wanted, but still, I got there. And then I came to the United States. I just had this in my mind of like, I don't feel right here. I'm gonna be one of those kids that gets a scholarship to go to the States. It's gonna be fine. And I ended up getting a very high amount of a scholarship to be able to come to the States. Funny how that happened. And met all these people that were really, really intelligent, wonderful, clever people, and they majored in all the humanities I could think of. History majors that are talking circles around me. I was like, I was lied to. Oh my goodness. And I bring that part up mostly because it really does inform how I approach my job and my work, and thinking about what should or should not gain priority in one way or another. But then I went to grad school because, I'm sitting there being like, okay, I love film studies. It's very cool, but I don't need a degree in film studies to do film studies. But I need a degree in biology if I want to do research. So let's do this. Again, reminder, chronic pain. Went into grad school. Oh my goodness, have I hurt my body so badly by doing repetitive science work. But I was an international student. If I wanted to give up in the middle of grad school, I'm getting sent back to India. By this time, I realized I'm very queer, and I do not want to go back to India. It's not a very safe place for queer people. And so I keep pushing through. There's no time to stop and have a conversation around acceptance yet. And it wasn't until I was here at UNCA and had gone through my reappointment process, which is like 3 years into your tenure track. They're like, okay, fine, you can have a few more years. And I was near breaking. It's a year after I figured out I have ADHD. And things started to kind of fall apart just spectacularly enough that acceptance wasn't a choice anymore. It was do this or break, end up in a hospital, end up completely drained, unable to do anything that you want to do. And in that moment, as again, neuroscientist learns she has ADHD. What does she do? She has neuropharmacology textbooks in her office. She goes home and looks up everything she can on the internet and then goes to the office and pulls down all those books and says, okay, what the hell is this and what is happening in my brain? And I started at that point to deconstruct all those molds people had set up for me and actually start to look at myself realistically. What is it that actually motivates me? What is it that feels comfortable for my body? What am I able to do without breaking myself if I shed what everybody else wants of me and actually just look at what I am capable of? And in that, they say acceptance will set you free. It didn't just set me free, it gave me wings. It gave me the ability to see the world in a way that so few people can because so few people have had the experience that I've had. And as creatives, we see this out there a lot, right? Tell your story. No one else has the same, story that you have, and it'll be of value, and so on and so forth. And it always felt kind of garbage to listen to that. But then I went through it, and I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, nobody else can make these really beautifully designed and yet pedagogically sound neuroscience learning games that you could use as an exam. I literally made a board game. That is, I made up the mechanics, I designed all of the components of it, the digital design pieces, including the cover art for the box and all of the other things. And my students play it as an exam in one of my classes. Because if you don't know what a voltage-gated sodium channel is, how will you put it on a board that shows you the pre- and postsynaptic space of a neuron? You can't. Because how many of you understood even 75% of those words? A few of you. And that's about what I would expect, because this is not the intended audience for a neuroscience lecture. It was that very, caution to the wind, let's just do what feels right and what makes sense for me, that let me say, you know what, I know I'm supposed to write a syllabus, but I just want to make art. So what do I do here? I turned my syllabus into an infographic. They are fantastically beautiful, if I say so myself. And the students respond to it so positively, because as it turns out, a lot of our students are also very neurodiverse. And so they come into my classes and they see a class built by a neurodiverse person for kind of themselves. I build everything for myself. If it helps my students, that's awesome. But I definitely build it for myself. So I need to remember what it is that we're doing just as much as they do. And they find it incredibly welcoming. They feel more comfortable looking at something that's been designed with care and time and love, because that's what I put into it, because to me it is art. And that it happens to be something that also becomes scholarship is awesome. So technically, as per the literature, I have invented the infographic style visual syllabus. It's never been published on before. And so I have invented it, which I think is awesome. But all of that came from very, very deep inquiry of what it is that I believe I should be doing because other people told me I should do it this way, right? Your syllabus should be a black and white piece of paper that's boring and full of do not do this, do not do that. One time a student tried to come in with a mouse in his pocket. Do not bring mice into the classroom. It's like bold in your syllabus. That's highly unnecessary. You don't have to do it that way. Or having to treat the people in front of you as somehow trying to cheat you out of something. Like a lot of times faculty think of students as the enemy. Why? I don't have to think of them that way. People think that you can't make board games and call it scholarship. Why? Questioning everything and only accepting the things that felt true to me and felt like they were unique to me and fit my own worldview and fit what I was capable of. Along that process of acceptance, I also walked away from my research lab, and I will never go back, the actual neuroscience research lab, because it has hurt me over and over and over again. It took me 3.5 years of getting dry needle 2 to 3 times a week sometimes. Does anybody know what dry needling is? Oh, lots of people. They take an acupuncture needle and they find like the muscle knot in your body and they stick the needle into it till the muscle releases. It's painful. It's painful as hell. But it actually works for people like me and the condition that I have. And after having gone through that, I used to joke with my PT that I want to make I want to put a diagram up somewhere in my house that has a human body and little pins everywhere we have gone and put needles in, so that anytime I think about going back to research, because I was supposed to do neuroscience research. I got a very high profile paper out of my graduate work. Why aren't you working on that? You should be doing research. We hired you as a neuroscientist. Do the neuroscience research. No, because that is what it did to my body. All those pins that are there, that is what it did to my body. I accept that my body is not meant for this. And in that acceptance, I ended up being in that room, to go back to the original part of this story, surrounded by my colleagues, and Brandy coming up to me and asking, hey, can we do this thing? And I could point to all the work that had happened there, and it all came from that place of acceptance. It takes me time to get things going. I'm okay with that. Sometimes I will wait till the last minute to do things, because that's part of ADHD. Urgency helps us be motivated. Does it really matter if it happens at the last minute? It happened before the students walked into class. That's what counts, right? So long as it happens before the deadline, nobody gives you a gold star for turning things in 2 days early. So if you're not going to give me a gold star for it, apparently we'll teach for gold stars. I should have a bumper sticker that says that. It wasn't easy. I won't tell you that kind of acceptance of self, because in my what have I learned to accept, I just said myself. It's not easy, because you have to be willing to look at yourself, just sit down and look at yourself with a level of honesty that can be so uncomfortable. And it can be so hard to chip back the layers of shoulds that people have put on you and whatever trauma they left behind. So I've also been renovating my house. And so in my head, I'm thinking about, some piece of furniture or some part of the wall where people have painted it over and over and over again. And so as you're chipping away at it, it's not just that you reveal the original wall. It has the dents and scratches of you digging at it to try and get the stuff that's on it out. And so then you have to heal the wall after that, right? And we have to heal ourselves as well. And it's a process, absolutely. But I would never go back. 2 days ago, someone from my current department asked me, hey, there's stuff in your freezers and stuff from your research time. Do you care? And I was like, even if someone put a gun to my head at this point, and I hate that expression, but let's go with it, I will do some matrix stuff to get out of the way, because I am not going back in there. I'm not going back in there. I will not put myself in more pain because someone thinks I should. Because I matter. And I accept who I am. And who I am is this really weird blend of someone who is trained a lot in the sciences, but has just so much fun making art out of it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Stay up here, stay up. Angel Kaur, give it up, give it up. So good, so good.
Sorry, I had to turn this off, but are there any questions? You, sir.
Yeah.
methods you use for that painful process of looking at yourself, like therapy, journaling, stuff like that?
I talked a lot with my husband. We kind of act as therapists to each other because it gets really hard to get into a relationship like that with a new therapist if you don't already have one. If you have a therapist that works really well for you, yes, it's very helpful. For me, just talking with someone who knows me really well so I don't have to fill in all the background, because how many steps of background did I skip here, right? So many steps, there's so many things. And I also did a lot of reflective journaling. One thing that happened randomly to me, I got an opportunity to be a writer in residence at Wild Acres. Has anyone been or heard of Wild Acres? It just very randomly happened that they had a cabin open, the person who was supposed to be there wasn't there. And I could go there for 2.5 days, which is good. If I'd stayed there for the whole week, I would have emerged cocoon butterfly nonsense would have happened in there. It's insane. But if you've been to the writing cabins in Wild Acres, they are secluded away from campus, and there's literally no cell phone service, no internet service. There's nothing to distract you from the task at hand. And it's a place where creatives have come year after year, week after week, and filled the place with just this energy that's very accepting, if you will, as it turns out. It is very accepting. And that was a real breaking point for me in a good way, to be able to not run away from what was going on in my own head through social media, through playing stupid games on my phone, through, wandering around trying to take care of my puppies, any of the life stuff. It was just me by myself in this cabin and nowhere to hide. That was a really good starting point. I'm also just a very navel-gazy person, and so that helped with it a lot. But having people around you that are willing to accept you, whether you are, an inch tall in a moment or 18 feet tall, and they won't flinch. That is the relationship that helps you really get down to the base level of the wall and start to build it back up. I mix metaphors a lot.
No, that's good.
ADHD
Before we take another question, Tom at the bar wants to know if you could enunciate a little more clearly your name of your podcast.
Club Kaur. Last is Kaur. That's my last name.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have. Please, Angel Kaur, give it up.
Thank you, everyone.